Jesus, you're gonna kill that guy.
Of course, I'm a Terminator.
Listen to me very carefully, okay? You're not a Terminator anymore, all right? You got that? You just can't go around killing people.
Why?
What do you mean, why? 'Cause you can't.
Why?
Because you just can't, okay? Trust me on this.
Man, what's the point in having a killing machine if you're just going to have him not kill? It's like, it's what he does.
That's the whole point of him. It's what he was created for. Although they reprogrammed him to be a protector, I suppose. But how long before the military just takes a hold of this thing and sends him to overseas and puts him into all their projects?
Isn't that the point? Isn't that like, ask Miles Dyson, right?
Yeah, that's why they did it.
Yeah.
I suppose. That's exactly why they did it.
Yeah.
So, welcome back to the Last Row Podcast. This is episode 125. As always, my name's Drew, and I'm joined by my best friend, life partner, and co-host, Mr. Badway. What's going on, Badway?
Did you just say, as always, my name is Drew? Like, as you go by something else?
As always.
Other times?
As opposed to other times when I don't go by Drew. That is correct.
Yeah. Where can they find us?
If you're looking for us,
AKA Drew.
If you're looking for us, as always, you can find our website, thelastrowpodcast.com. On all the social channels, our handle is at The Last Row Pod. Check us out on Facebook, Spotify, YouTube. Hit subscribe if you're enjoying the show. And if you're enjoying it, please consider leaving us a 5-star review. We appreciate everyone that's taken the time and left us one so far. What's going on, Badway?
Not much, man. Just trying to figure out the rules of time travel, like any regular old Sunday, right? You know?
Just a long weekend trying to figure out timelines and time travel and complicated situations of future and past, present.
Different John Connors, this and that. So, yeah, we're doing Terminator 2 Judgment Day.
It is Judgment Day.
July 3rd, 1991 was not Judgment Day, but was the day this movie was released. I mean, it's one of the best movies of all time. I mean, really, best action movies of all time. There's nothing wrong with this movie, but we wanted to explore the space. Did you see this movie as a youth? Or
not until a few years after it came out. I saw it on I think HBO or one of the pay channels at that time, but I didn't see it like in the theater, put it that way. I don't know if you did.
Yeah, so I had this thing where I saw it, I think it was on like the movie channel, Showtime, one of those, HBO, whatever it was. So I saw it on there, and then I recorded it. I taped it. But my tape was only 2 hours long, and I didn't know it at the time. And this movie's like the runtime 217, too long, or just right for this movie. So every subsequent viewing, it would cut off right in the middle of like the steel mill scene.
So Axel says too long.
Yeah, kind of like right after the T-1000 gets shattered, but with a liquid nitrogen. That's like where my movie stops. I knew how it ended because I saw it once before.
But at what point do you watch it enough that you forget how it ends then? Or you miss it because, Maxwell or whatever the tapes, RCA says too long. Too long.
I always missed it, but like I watched it a lot because it was one of the few R-rated movies that I was like allowed to watch.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's my story down memory lane. Like I said, 2 hours, 17 minutes.
I think it's just right.
Just about right. There's a director's cut that's 2:33, probably too long.
Too long.
Interesting scenes in the director's cut. Maybe we'll get into some of that later. Ultimate cut 2:36. Definitely too long.
Too long.
I mean, extra 3 minutes. Come on.
Who does James Cameron think he is? Making
come on,
a 4-hour Avatar movie?
Jimmy. Come on, Jimmy Cameroon. Directed by Jimmy Jimbo, J-Bones Cameroon, James Cameron. We know and love him. Director of my favorite movie of all time, Titanic. IMDb 8.6 out of 10.
Is that hold on a second. Did you just drop that? Is that really your favorite movie of all time?
No. It's
right.
controversial. It's a controversial take because it's not really my favorite movie of all time, but like I underestimate how much I love that movie.
I thought you were just dropping that in there. I'm like,
no.
Wait a second.
And if you have a problem with Titanic, then there's something wrong. There's something wrong with you. You as in you people, not like you personally, but you because like you. It's 3 movies in one, and it's a pretty short runtime for it being 3 movies in one.
For it being too long.
A historical movie, a romance, and a disaster film. Pretty great. It's James Cameron. IMDb 8.6 out of 10 for Terminator 2. Too low. 92% Rotten Tomato. Too low. Metacritic 75%. What are we talking about? It's too low.
Way too low.
4.2 out of 5. Too low. Out of 351 1,000 votes.
I'm surprised that Letterboxd isn't higher. Honestly, this
Yeah.
is like a critically acclaimed and universally loved movie. Also, we might debate this later, but this might be the greatest sequel of all time, hands down. Not even a debate.
Yeah, I mean, it's been done to death. The whole "what's the best sequel" thing. Like, obviously, this is one of the best.
This is the answer.
But yeah, how are you going to watch this movie and not give it like at least a 4? Like, who's giving it a 3?
Yeah.
It was good, but
well, you did give Into the Spider-Verse a 2 or something, right?
We're not comparing Spider-Verse with Terminator 2
I'm just
Judgment
saying
Day.
your scale, whatever you used for the scale of that movie.
Is
We'll
it good? Did you
our
like
friend.
it? Is it good? Is it good? Did you like it? Yeah.
I mean, I liked it, and it is very
Yeah.
good. It's a 5
Yeah.
out of 5 to me.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah. In this sequel, set 11 years after the Terminator, young John Connor, the key to civilization's victory over a future robot uprising, is the target of the shape-shifting T-1000. A Terminator sent from the future to kill him. Another Terminator, the revamped T-800, has been sent back to protect the boy. As John and his mother go on the run with the T-800, a boy forms an unexpected bond with the robot. Radar.
It's a friendship movie.
It's a friendship movie.
It's a buddy movie.
It's a father-son bonding. Good father barometer.
Yeah.
A+ father, the Terminator 2.
The best father of
I
all.
like to call him Terminator 2. That's okay. I'm probably going to do that a few times accidentally. We're just going to go with it. He is Terminator 2.
I mean, he's the second T-800 that we've seen, so it's a fair statement.
Whereas the bad Terminator was T1. So if I refer to him as T2, T2 is Arnold.
Yeah, and don't let me forget this. We should come back to this, but I want to talk to you about like the feel of the first movie versus the second one, but we'll come back to that in a second. So let's hit up some taglines here. You tell me what you think of these. I think there's some good ones. Some of them are kind of whatever, but I'll start with the first one. So it's nothing personal.
No, has nothing to do with the movie. Doesn't make any sense. Next.
This time he's back for good.
Not true, because he melted himself immediately after the mission was over. He couldn't wait to get away from whiny ass John Connor.
Temporarily back for a part.
All that teen angst, he just couldn't stand it.
Isn't this movie take place in like one day, basically? It's like a day or two, right?
2 days, I think.
48 hours? This time he's back for 48 hours.
48, 72, 90, 96.
This time he's back for 3 days. The battle for tomorrow has begun. Not bad.
It's okay.
All right. This next one is offensive. Get terminated July 3rd.
How is it offensive? I kind of like it.
They're going to terminate you.
Yeah.
Like you terminated by watching
you
this?
get an experience that's going to blow your ass away.
You watch this and then they kill you at the end when you're done.
You're going to get butt punished in 4DX.
They murder you.
Yeah.
You get terminated at the end of the movie.
I like it.
Here's another one. Remember the action. Remember the danger. Remember the emotion. Remember the mission. But if you've seen it all, look again.
No.
Nope.
Too much.
Same make, same model, new mission. I like that one.
I like
that one.
Yeah.
And last two. Hasta la vista, baby.
No.
Nope. You can't do the line from the movie.
Don't do the line.
This is my favorite. This time there are two.
T2.
I like that.
2 Terminators. T2.
They should have put two.
Yeah.
You know?
Terminators.
That's my favorite one.
What if the movie was just called Terminators?
Terminators.
Yeah.
It could have been. I mean,
Terminators : Judgment Day.
Do you feel like giving it a number in the sequel sometimes cheapens it? Like when they do instead of saying Batman Returns, it was like Batman 2, like Terminator 2. I know they put a : Judgment Day, but I think Terminators would have been good.
I don't know. I think it depends on the title. Like, do you think it's classier that The Godfather is called, and the sequel to The Godfather is called The Godfather Part 2?
Yeah, I mean, Karate Kid did the same thing, right? Like Karate Kid Part 2.
If you put
part
the part, it sounds classier than just 2.
Yeah, but like, I don't even if not even saying the number or the fact that it is an extra one, like what if they just said, like, I like what you said, Terminators. Like it's the second one.
But then you don't get, like, I feel like they wanted to, like, that was a calculated marketing move to call it T2.
They do.
Like they wanted to call it T2.
Yeah. I get it. And they should have put the 2 in the thing, like Terminators instead of the S was a 2. I would have liked that. But then it's like Terminator 2, I guess.
This is before Fast and Furious. So
Too Fast, Too Furious.
Yeah.
Anyway, I digress. So financials, this thing had a ballooned budget and it went way up. And I think I saw something the studio execs were kind of nervous. But listen, man, you got James Cameron on your hands.
You got Arnold.
You give the guy the money. You take the checkbook out. You give him whatever he wants to make the movie that he's going to make. It was reportedly 94 to 102 million estimated. And the cumulative worldwide gross was a return on about 520 million, and I'm sure that's not even enough. Like, there's probably even more. But this thing was a hit.
You're not going to give Picasso a box of crayons. Like, you got to give him the paints. You got to give him expert paints to paint his portrait.
And I don't know where this goes in, and maybe it's part of the budget or not, and I don't know where this fits, but we should just take a second here. But like, were you into the merchandising for this movie? There was a whole bunch of stuff related to like the toy line that was out, and we talked about this before, but having like a very small having a toy line that targeted young children for an R-rated movie was kind of wild.
Yeah.
Right?
And correct me if I'm wrong, but there might have been like a Burger King tie-in too or something like that.
I think there was.
There's a whole bunch going on. Like, and I was all about it. I didn't have any of the toys, but I was all about like the T2 merchandise, and like I thought it was cool. And I didn't even know about Terminator 1. I was maybe 7 or 8 at the time.
Yeah.
I saw T2 before I saw T1, because T1, there was a sex scene and all, it's not for me.
It's more a horror movie, really.
Right. But yeah, I was all about it. I was all about the marketing. And I think it's kind of weird to market an R-rated movie towards kids no matter what you're doing, but I guess I get it. And in this case specifically, this is almost a PG-13 movie.
Yeah.
Watching it.
I wanted to ask you about that. Like, do you feel that, because the first one was horror-ish. We've even said that when we did the first episode. Go back and check it out. One of our previous episodes, we did Terminator 1984. Do you feel like this one was like what made it a borderline? It's like a soft R instead because of language and stuff like that, I think.
Yeah, it's just language. There's no sex, no nudity, no nothing like that. No hinting of sex.
Arnold's not
killing people. The Terminators are shooting each other. There's T-1000 stabs a few people pretty violently. That's what gets its R rating, and that's about it.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, the language is, you could cut it out. But like the T-1000 stabs people in the eye, like that's pretty violent. I guess if they didn't show that,
that's it. No, it's the T-1000's violence with the stabbings is it, really. Arnold's shooting at cops, but he's not killing them. You could say, the almost massacre at Cyberdyne is more than what PG-13 movie would like, but he's just shooting him in the leg and he's gassing him. But the fact that you're up there shooting a minigun at cops could be R in itself.
Implied. Yeah, the implication of that. Like, I mean, it's a badass scene. You can't argue with that. But
it's all about the implication.
I didn't mean to take us down that path, but it's just while we were talking about it, I felt like it made sense to touch. I mean, this movie was very successful. It was obviously very popular. This is the one Terminator movie of all of them in the franchise that actually was nominated and won Oscars. It had 6 Oscar noms and it won 4 awards: Best Sound, Best Effects, Sound Effects Editing, Best Visual Effects, Best Makeup. It lost cinematography and Best Film Editing to some other films back in 91 there. It also won a couple BAFTAs, one for sound and Best Visual Effects. We like the BAFTAs on this.
It was a ball-ass fun time, this whole movie.
What I'm about, though, is the fact that Arnold won a Kids' Choice Award for Favorite Movie Actor. That's the best one. And... Yeah,
I'm not gonna. I always forget, but we did a movie recently where an R-rated movie won an actor Best Kids' Choice Awards.
Yeah,
totally weird.
It is,
but
weird.
Again, it transcends rating.
It's toys.
Like everyone knew that Arnold was the Terminator, and the fact that he was a good guy, of course.
Yeah,
of course.
It made it even better.
Like him banging out the one-liners. You don't have to see the movie to know Arnold's one-liners from this movie.
Well, and not to mention the fact that this thing won a whole bunch of MTV Movie Awards, and '92 was a pretty big year for this. I won't go into all of them, but it won Best Movie. Linda Hamilton won Best Female Performance. Schwarzenegger won Best Male Performance. Furlong won Best Breakthrough Performance, which you could maybe argue on that. Linda Hamilton also won Most Desirable Female, which you can't have that category anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you're into.
That's what I mean. Best Action Sequence for the LA Freeway Chase, which is iconic. Robert Patrick lost Best Villain and then Best Movie Song, You Could Be Mine. Let me tell you.
Dude, You Could Be Mine.
Yeah, and I'm surprised that Robert Patrick lost the Best Villain award. So he lost to Rebecca De Mornay, The Hand That Rocks a Cradle. There's other movies in this category, and these are things that like we really wouldn't watch, like Alan Rickman for Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, Cape Fear, Robert De Niro, Wesley Snipes, New Jack City. But like, how did the T-1000 not win the Best Villain for freaking MTV Movie Awards?
It's because it's MTV movies, but let me tell you, if you've never seen Hand That Rocks the I didn't see this movie until way after all this was done. more evil than the T-1000.
I know, but
That's for sure.
the T-1000 is like iconic. I'm not
Yeah.
going to say that she
You
doesn't
can't
deserve.
you can't just have T2 just run away with
It's
all the
got to win
awards
everything,
now, right?
I mean, it's the best movie. It's
You can't just have like you can't just have everyone just come up on stage collecting Moon Men. You gotta spread it out.
Check out. So what else? The nominees for best movie were Boys in the Hood, great movie, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, Backdraft, JFK, and then obviously this one. And Schwarzenegger was also up against Costner for Prince Robin Hood, Val Kilmer for The Doors, great iconic performance, and De Niro for Prince of Thieves. I mean, there's a whole bunch in here for this Terminator, but the most desirable female had Linda Hamilton, like I said, and then Christina Applegate, Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. I really want to do that movie on this show sometime. I think that's great. And Tia Carrere for Wayne's World. I mean, there's a ton of stuff. Point Break came out this year too. It's a crazy, and we did that movie too. Go check out our back catalog. There's a lot of stuff, but T2 cleaned it up, man. They won a ton of awards. Well deserved, in my opinion. Well deserved.
Big time. All right, Drew. Now getting into the movie here, we meet Arnold, and he's just like so clean shaven, Drew. What
Baby
do you think,
smooth.
What do you think he pulled from the future to get such a close shave?
Well, if he had a beard, I can tell you what he would need. He would need the beard hedger from Manscaped. And breaking news, man, Manscaped now sells beard products. That's right, man. They're once again revolutionizing men's grooming with the brand new beard hedger. From a beard trim to a fresh shave like Arnold, the technology behind the beard hedger allows you to shape your signature beard look. Now you can finally use Manscaped products to make your drapes match your carpet by going to manscaped.com and using our promo code LASTROW, LASTROW, for 20% off and free shipping. And let me tell you, Badway, you guys have seen me on these streams. You guys have seen my face. I've got a heck of a hedge on my face. I've used this thing and it cuts through it and it does a pretty damn good job.
Yeah, Drew's hair is just wild and out of control with the length, but his beard is always on point. And so is mine. I've used the beard hedger as well, and it is a step above all current products I've used in this area, Drew. So as Manscaped says, it's time to tame your mane. No one likes a weird beard. Drew likes weird hair, but not weird beards. So we're saying goodbye to all your stubble trouble with Manscaped Beard Hedger. This thing is a juggernaut of fixing faces. First off, this cordless trimmer has a rotary wheel that gives you 20 hair cutting lengths. 20. I mean, some would say too high. I say just right.
Just right.
All with one guard, so no more messy drawers full of extra add-ons. That's right, face grooming doesn't need to be hard. Get 20 different beard lengths in just one guard. While the beard hedger is made for any length, it has a special feature for all my bald-faced boys out there. The hedger has a built-in advanced lift comb technology that allows for a smoother, complete shave. Plus, the trimmer is also waterproof, so you can shave in the shower and avoid all that hair in the sink. I wouldn't douse the thing in water. Like, I wouldn't take it in the tub with me in the bubble bath. You know, if we're washed up in the bubble bath, I wouldn't dip it. But if you got the running water going, you're good to go. It also comes with the titanium-coated T-blades that are tough on hair but smooth on your face, leading to single-stroke efficiency that brings satisfaction one stroke at a time. The beard hedger is a high-tech piece of art in a travel-size package with a long-lasting battery, universal charging, and a strong motor. So the company that helped reduce nicks and cuts on your special place has come to save your face. Drew, how can we get this product?
A lot of people ask us, how do you help out the show? If you really want to help the show out and help yourself get a nice beard trim and a nice close shave there, go to manscaped.com, get 20% off and free shipping with our promo code LASTROW. That's LASTROW. Manscaped Beard Hedger, one stroke, one guard, 20 lengths. Let's jump into the movie and talk a little bit about the time travel and the rules, because I want to talk a little bit about what sends this T-800 back. John Connor sends him back, but like, how did they get this guy and reprogram him? We got to break this down a little bit.
This is a tough subject, Drew, so you're going to have to rein me in a little bit if I get too deep in the weeds, because this could be an hour conversation
need a flow
by
chart.
itself.
You're going to need some visuals and diagrams.
Yeah.
You get a whiteboard?
So what we have is, so if we're talking about the 1984 timeline, right? We have a John Connor that we don't know of sending back Kyle Reese to protect Sarah Connor so that she may give birth to John Connor. How is that possible? Yeah. It's an infinite time loop. Don't ask me, please. So my theory with the sending back is the original timeline John Connor was the weakest possible John Connor because no one was prepared for the robot uprising, right? No one was prepared for Skynet. So the prophecy foretold that John Connor will help lead the human resistance. So when he sends Reese back to prep Sarah to have John Connor and for him to be the chosen one to lead the human resistance, it allowed to create a stronger John Connor, so that maybe the resistance gets a little stronger in the fight. The war itself gets pushed back a few more years, whatever may delay it, because whatever happens, right? So in this timeline, we have the prepped John Connor kind of out on his own. He knows what his mom told him, but I mean, she could be batshit crazy for all he knows.
Right. I mean, according to most, she is. Yeah.
And I'm sure she's described in tremendous detail that only a crazed lunatic would be able to describe, thinking like they think it's real. Sure. But with such detail, you have to think in the back of his mind, he's like, she's probably crazy, but I got to take this stuff kind of seriously that she's teaching me. Right. You have to think that.
The T-800, and it's really revealed that Connor sends him back, and they're sending the T-1000, so Skynet's sending the T-1000 back to now get John Connor as a child. They said, hey, they sent 2 of them back. The original one was to get her as a mother. So I don't know if this is happening sort of like alternatively at the same exact timeline too. You talk about whiteboards and time charts and stuff. I want to know what they did to reprogram him. Like, how did they reprogram the T-800, and did they go into a factory and get another one? Did they steal him? Like, obviously he probably attacked them maybe, but what goes into reprogramming a T-800, and how did they do that to make him like a good guy?
It's funny. I'm not sure how they made him a good guy, but I guess you could say that it was more successful in that it wasn't a killing machine, but that was partially due to John Connor telling him, please don't kill people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they did have the learning switch in the chip, which if you watch a deleted scene, a geek like I am, saw deleted scenes of this movie. And it's in the extended version as well. If you want to, spend an extra 20 minutes watching Terminator 2 for the 100th time, please watch the extended version on HBO Max. They actually go into his brain and they flip the switch to make him learn from humans versus being quote unquote read only. But as far as how Kyle Reese and John Connor and all those the ragtag crew did all this, I don't know if they had a Dyson in their corner. Maybe they did. Maybe they had some kind of Miles Dyson character in their corner to maybe kidnap one, find one that was half broken, and be able to test on it.
I'll say this: you're on record we are on record of saying that they sent back a dud. So the T-800 in back in 1984 was a dud. That thing was not successful at all. It was really a dumb killing machine.
It's a pretty easy job, and they botched it really bad.
It seems like they've improved on their. At least they could turn them good. So this thing it might be the Model 1 or whatever, the 800 or whatever series. T-1000 this thing is like consistently beating the T-1000 to different places. Now maybe it has more information or whatnot, but it seems like it was certainly more effective as a good guy or on the good side than the bad side. Certainly. Yeah. We talked a little bit about in the original Terminator episode that we did about them sending them back and what's the process of sending them back. Like they come back nude. So they're fully nude wherever they show up. They have no clothes. They can't send back any physical objects. But the other thing that we didn't really touch on is like, are they looking for a specific persona or a person to take a likeness of? Arnold just happened to see the biker and took his clothes in the first one. This one seemed a little bit more calculated where he knew he wanted to be that again. And the T-1000 shows up as a cop. Was that on purpose or was that an accident? And is it that you spawn next to something and you become it? Like, was it calculated?
I don't think that the teleport like ending point is calculated because why? Well, maybe it is. You want to have him in relative obscurity. You send him in the middle of the night. But like for example, Arnold got spawned on the back end of a was it a shipping container or a pickup truck, like
a 18-wheeler.
Like I'm sure you don't want to just like be in the middle of a truck, right? It burned it off. It's like that's not very accurate or precise, is it?
Nice
right?
touch.
Yeah, it's not very precise. And the T-1000 was in the middle of a fence. But I guess maybe like it's the same spot that they were. It's just you can't predict what was built on that spot, 27 years ago, or however long ago, like in the future it was that they were sent back. But no, it's completely random, and who you meet is completely random too. Like, would you prefer Arnold? Do you prefer Arnold in his street punk clothes that he stole from Bill Paxton, or do you prefer biker Arnold?
Biker Arnold is hands down my favorite because he looks badass. I mean,
He's
you got to
wearing
have
leather
some
pants.
balls. Yeah, you got to have some balls to show up completely nude at a biker bar in 1991. I don't think that I would be doing that. Or you got to either look like Arnold or you got to be tough enough to fight off anybody that shows
So
up there.
it's funny. All the female patrons and waitresses, they were like, "Oh," and the guys were like immediately upset.
Yeah.
So it's like,
They're offended.
Was it because like there's too much going on down there, or was it like
They were threatened.
were they threatened or what was going on here, or were they just like maybe homophobic and they're like, "Who's this
I'm
guy?"
sure that's it too. But
Who's
then
this
also
guy?
you got to wonder like about Skynet. Like, are they defining the average size of a male there? Like, what goes
Yeah.
into defining the genitalia of a
I don't know,
Terminator?
man. I feel like there's
It's gonna look
like
real.
that's it's irrelevant, so it'd be a waste of time to worry about size. I know in the pre-notes, or maybe it was last night, we were talking about Cyberpunk, the game Cyberpunk 2077, where there's like a slider to like select your size of dong or whatever. Completely unnecessary because you're not naked in the movie ever. It's like in the game. So I feel like it would have been a waste of time for Skynet to care about such a thing. So I think it would have been funny if it would have been like this big hulking muscular dude with like a tiny little dong.
Is it functioning too? Like, not to get into the nitty gritty of this, like I don't mean to go, but doesn't he need to pose as a human? So shouldn't he have to be able to use it?
Well, never has the Terminator been in a situation that he needs to F himself out of, Drew. So
Not until now. Like, if he showed up as a
yeah.
prostitute, maybe he would have needed to.
Yeah. So yeah, like what if like let's skip to the T-1000 then. Like he showed up and surprise, next to a cop. Here's kill the cop, free cop car, right?
Yep.
He can look up where John Connor lives. He's got a few misdemeanors on him. What if the first thing he saw was a prostitute, male or female? Right? He could morph into any human he wants once he touches them.
Yeah.
He could have morphed into a female prostitute and taken a female form.
Yeah, he could have.
It's not just Robert Patrick. It's whoever.
Unless it's Robert Patrick in a wig. Like, that would
Yeah.
be funny.
Well, now you're saying something. Now we're getting somewhere.
I think it's interesting though, like, what is the worst thing? Because the first movie, he shows up and he's got to use the phone book. So he's got to use a phone book or the yellow pages and the white pages to go find Sarah Connor. You're right. Like, he nailed it. He had a police database. He could just type in John Connor and go find him. That stuff existed back in 84. It just wasn't accessible, I suppose.
And like he had no emotions, just like the T-800, just like Arnold. He really had no emotions, so he kind of fit a cop, kind of like on a mission to find a boy, right? Imagine if he turned into that prostitute and he was like, his mission was, all right, I'm a prostitute. I guess I'm gonna try to talk this boy into banging me so I can stab him once I get near him, right? So imagine him trying to seduce John Connor as a prostitute, monotone robot, looking like, who the hell knows what. That's a movie I want to see.
Do you think it was bad that he picked a cop? Because, like, you mentioned this before we recorded, and maybe I should save it for the villain scale, but like, how would he know? I mean, is Skynet realize that teenagers are sort of averse to authority figures?
That's the major problem with him being a cop. He would have killed John Connor right there in the arcade had he looked anything else except a cop.
Yeah, he could have just been a random guy.
Budnick, his buddy, ratted him out right away. If he would have morphed into another kid, all he had to do was kill a kid.
Well, they said
and
like
take
size.
the form of the kid.
Does he become a really big kid because they said it's like size?
Is he always like 6'2"? Yeah, that's the thing. No, because he turned into the floor. He turned into the floor also.
I was just gonna say, if you're gonna turn into like floor tile, then maybe.
Let's just get into this now because I find the whole conversation between John and Arnold ridiculous when he talks about what the T-1000 can and can't do.
Complex machines.
He can't turn into a pack of cigarettes because it has to be like size. So he can't turn into a gun or a bomb because there are mechanical parts or chemistry involved. But he can turn into any human he wants, right? Like, to me, what's more complex than being human?
Yeah,
than turning into a human.
Unless it's the shell of it.
It's just the skin, I guess. Your internals aren't a human. Okay,
but isn't like the T-1000 the most complex machine like ever made? So isn't anything by definition less complex? like a bomb is certainly less complex than how the T-1000's internals work, I would
Right.
imagine.
And there's still like there's still chemistry and atoms involved in turning your hand into a hard spear, right? A penetrating spear, right?
It's a caveman weapon, I
Yeah.
suppose.
But I guess you can't like form yourself into a gun that has like, has a hammer. It's got the trigger. It's got multiple motions. If this, then that, then this equals bullet goes.
What about like a crossbow or something? Like
Yeah.
that's not a complex machine. Like he could
Hey.
make himself into a bow and arrow and then
You know,
shoot himself at people.
You're right. And now I'm thinking about the mask where it's like, what if he just like formed a liquid bullet in his mouth and just spit it? He spit it. He's spitting it at John Connor.
I'm thinking
Like that's
about-
not complex at all. That's
Yeah.
it's rudimentary.
Like you said, the mask when he's shooting the Tommy gun bullets or
Yeah,
whatever out of his
right.
mouth. He
Or
could do
just-
that.
Or just creating knives and just throwing knives at John. You know?
I like that.
Yeah.
We have to save some of this for the villain scale. Maybe we should talk
Yeah.
about T-800 first, and we'll come back to this. But I think it's a fair point. Like, what is it, right? Because the T-800 is a pretty simple machine by comparison, even though
Yeah.
he almost seems more complex because he's got more parts and moving things, and the T-800 is just like ball of liquid that
Yeah.
balls up. But I want to talk about Arnold for a second. You asked me this before we recorded. I think it's a really important question. Was Arnold too big to play the bad guy at this point in his career? We talked about how they positioned him as you don't know if he's good or bad before you go into this movie. You come in, like, what do you think about Arnold as the bad guy and then him being the good guy in this? It flips it on its head from 1984.
Yeah, I feel like at a certain point, an action star, once he gains traction as becoming a star, you don't want to show yourself being defeated, right? This is a plot point in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where Leonardo DiCaprio's character played this big, tough, movie star, where he always won, he always got the girl, he always saved the day, and now he's being cast as like a big bad on someone else's show, on Timothy Olyphant's show, where he's in there for a 1-episode arc or 2-episode arc where he gets defeated at the end. And that kind of tells the audience that you're less than, you're on the downslope of your career, or you're not as powerful as, say, the hero of the movie. It's more of like it's like art imitating life in a way. So I feel like at this point you can't have Arnold being a bad guy when he has this momentum as becoming an action superstar.
Yeah.
Do you take anything from that, or do you think it's like
No, I think it is because he was coming off of Kindergarten Cop. He came off a bunch of other movies.
Well, I mean, look at this. I mean, after he was freaking Terminator, I'm skipping some, but obviously Commando, he was Predator, he was Running Man. He did a couple comedies. He did Kindergarten Cop, he did Twins. He was Quaid in Total Recall. Like, that's too many good guy movies in a row. You can't
You can't
to
go
this day.
backwards.
Like, when was the last time he was a bad guy? Like,
I don't
has he
think
been?
he was.
Has he
I don't
been
think he
since
was.
Mr. Freeze?
Yeah,
Which
maybe
is like
that's it.
it's just kind of silly, but it's like silly. Did Mr. Freeze not kind of like railroad his career a little bit?
That's true.
Maybe not his fault, but like him being a villain in a movie kind of led to stunting the momentum of his career.
You know what he said after that? Never doing that again.
Never doing that shit again.
Never doing that
Yeah.
again.
I bet his agent warned him, and he's like, "Trust me." He said, I got this."
Trust me. No, it's true though. I don't know. I mean, there's something where people play the good guy all the time, and it's like maybe it's fun to be the bad guy, but
Yeah.
it's a little different to your point where he was on top of the world. And at a certain point, it's actually probably shocking for people to see him as the bad guy because
Yeah.
it's like, oh my God, he's this good guy.
It's-
Think about a movie like The
Yeah.
Expendables.
Yeah.
Like Expendables 2, one of my favorite movies of that whole series. The bad guy was Van Damme. And you
Nobody-
mentioned like he took one for the team.
Yeah, nobody wanted to be the bad guy in that movie. And
Would
Van Damme was
Seagal
like,
have been
"Fine,
a
I'll
better
do it."
bad guy?
Yeah, they wanted Seagal. He said no way, and he should have done it because his career was already over.
It
And
would have
he
been
still
awesome.
refused.
I
He
mean, Van Damme
refused to be
was-
defeated.
Van Damme was amazing in that movie, and he's actually probably one of my favorite parts. Like he played an awesome bad guy, and that
Yeah.
movie is underrated. I know that movie gets a lot of crap. That series gets a lot of crap, but
Yeah.
that movie is fantastic. The second one is so good,
Yeah.
and I feel like Van Damme was great. But it would have been awesome if Seagal was the bad guy. He should have
Yeah.
done it. So
Yeah. And we do wrestling. Callbacks in this podcast a lot, but it's really the same. And us and I say us, I mean everyone, me and you included, that we're kind of dumb, like subliminally, to where, and especially back in the late 80s and early 90s as an audience, to where, there has to be momentum for your Q rating. And Arnold could not have been a bad guy in this movie. Like, it definitely would have been an awkward position on his filmography,
especially after the films that he did.
Yeah.
So, but when I think about him, you talk about him being a good guy. You look at him as a father figure in this. You mentioned it, right? He's sort of a good father, sort of a father figure. I mean, what would you think having the Terminator as your friend or your pseudo father? I mean, it's a pretty good guy to have.
Yeah, I mean, I forget the exact words, but Sarah Connor laid it out in her little speech there. It's like he'll never hit him, he'll never beat him, he'll never yell at him. You know, he'll be there for him forever. And it's like, he's sad a little bit, right?
That's like,
oh, what a good dad.
Her bar is so low. Like, he'll never beat him. He'll never, like, I mean, come on. She's been running guns. I mean, the crowd she's hanging with.
He'll never be too busy. He'll never be drunk. He'll never, say, shut up, I'm watching the game. Like, he'll never do that.
He's a machine.
He's a machine.
So would she have fallen in love with him if he stuck around more?
Oh,
I mean, she looked like she was really looking for love. I mean, I don't want to turn it into a romance here, but...
Don't be ridiculous. She was not looking for love. She's looking for blood.
But how do you not fall in love if he's like the best father figure with your kid?
There's no time to fall in love when the cyborg robot revolution is around the corner.
Uncle Bob.
There's no time.
Plus, he's Uncle Bob.
And B, she will never, I don't care how many times it saves her life, personally, she will never fully trust that thing.
Let's talk about her then, because I agree with you. You talk about the bad father barometer. Is there a bad mother barometer? Is she a good mother? Like, what is your take on this? Because this is a complex subject.
Well, this is the ultimate, like, how would you do it better? And it's kind of impossible to answer. She is a good mother, but if you take a step back and see the way she did it, she might even tell you she'd do it differently, right? Because she went so hard into the belief that it got her institutionalized. You can't do that.
Yeah.
She left him alone. She's helpless in that. And she you can see it in the scenes where she's going nuts in there, not because they don't believe her, but because he's vulnerable right now. Right. So you have to do better to not get yourself institutionalized, which means lying to the public more about what you're all about. You can't tell your future boyfriends and gun trainers and whatever she was taking young John Connor along. You can't tell them about the robot uprising. You got to keep that shit to yourself. You tell him and him alone, right?
I mean, we know that the government suppressed what happened, right? They found the chip, they found the arm.
Yeah,
it was a cover up. Did the psychiatrist and all of them, were they in on it too, or did they really think she was nuts? Because that psychiatrist was there at the police station when that place got shot up. Yeah. So it wasn't like he didn't see Arnold in 84 gunning that place down.
Right. But there was never any real visible proof that it was a machine. True. It was just a maniac that, killed however many people.
Came in and was never seen again.
Yeah, and then he was never seen again. So it's like a manhunt for this maniac that inexplicably went on this police station massacre. Yeah, they may have hit him a few times with bullets, but he could have been high on PCP. Well, who knows? Like, it's not like he revealed himself to be a robot.
That's true. And I mean, you're right. And I think you brought up a good point, because one of the things I was going to ask was, like, what is it like being locked up in a psych ward? Yeah. Knowing that you're right. I think about the movie 12 Monkeys with Bruce Willis. And I think about the idea of, like, knowing that the world is going to end, and you're trying to tell people, you're right in that if she could do it again, maybe she'd do it differently, because if you start revealing this information, you start telling people stuff, they're not going to believe you, and then they're going to lock you up and you're stuck and you can't do anything. Whereas maybe she plays more of a guerrilla war behind the scenes instead.
But you bring up that police massacre, and that's the tricky part, because probably to her, it's super obvious, right?
Right.
And it is. It's like, you guys were there.
She was there.
This thing, with no regard for his own life, walked in and out of that station, killing everyone and taking hits. Didn't you guys see? Like, isn't that fishy? And maybe in the back of your mind, maybe some of the cops do believe her. Or at least, like, maybe it'd be interesting to investigate this further. But that opens themselves up to also being institutionalized if they go too far down the rabbit hole. So you're better off maybe not believing her to save your own ass.
I want to talk about John Connor too. And it's a major point, because you got Edward Furlong playing John Connor. He hasn't been in a ton, but talk about preparing your child to be the leader of the resistance.
Yeah.
Do you actually believe that this kid, I mean, this kid that you see in this movie,
This boy.
have
I seen this boy?
you seen this boy? Do you know John Connor? Could you see him growing up to become the leader of the resistance? And is it the resistance of all humans, or is it just like the faction of Los Angeles?
Dude, I don't know, man. I don't see it in this guy. He's smart. He's definitely smart.
He knows how to hack an ATM.
He knows how to hack an ATM. He's street smart and he's book smart. Even if he doesn't like go to school or whatever, like he's still smart. So that's like step one, right? Tough? I don't know. Like I could probably beat this kid up, right? as a fellow 14-year-old.
I was gonna say right now, or as a 14-year-old.
Absolutely, I crush him right now. But don't you remember a kid can't beat me at anything?
He's got the T-800 with him though.
Yeah.
Can you take Arnold? Arnold will be ready
I
to
feel like
shoot you.
well, yeah, I don't want to get shot in the leg, but yeah,
He'll live.
well, that's a different story.
You'll live.
You know, if his friends could beat me up, and if the T-800 is considered his friend, then yeah, that's different. No, I don't see it. And it's really it's him, right? It's Edward Furlong. Is that kind of it?
It kind of is. Like, I just don't see it with him. And, I've thought about this when we were watching this. Like, this movie is by and large a perfect movie. I don't think you change much.
Yeah.
But I can't help but think, and maybe at the time it was different because he was sort of a young actor. If you went back and replaced him, because as I was watching, there's one person that I was thinking, and I want to see if you're thinking it too, around the same time that kind of looks like him and could kind of act like him. I'm curious if you would think about it, who this person is, but I kept thinking, if you're going to do anything with this movie, and it's a total hindsight is 2020 thing, replace him out, I think that's the one thing I would change. And I'm curious who you would change him with.
See, I was drawing a blank because I couldn't think of any kid actors that would like my stupid brain goes to like sitcom. So I'm like, what is it? Jonathan Taylor Thomas going to do this? Like, no. Is Michael J. Fox going to? Like,
it's Ryder Strong.
Yeah. And then you said it in our pre-meeting, and I was like, okay, there it is. Why don't you reveal it?
Because all I could think about was another James Cameron actor, Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
And he was young at the time. He wasn't doing that much here. I think he did What's Eating Gilbert Grape in 93. But he kind of looks like him. He had the same hair. They were around the same age.
He does.
I think a 2-year difference.
Mm-hmm.
Man, if you went back and cast a young Leo DiCaprio in this movie, I think it could have worked. And I'm not saying Furlong was bad. I just think Leo would have taken it up a notch.
Now, here's the thing. Now, Leo can do anything, right? He can transform himself, sure. But like, Furlong is just, sorry, no offense to 14-year-old Edward Furlong, but isn't he like dirty looking?
Yeah.
Like he has the dirtball look that fits John Connor, right?
He did.
You got this blonde kid and this brunette kid. Who are you gonna pick? And it's like, but again, which leads to me not believing he's the leader of resistance. Which it's the other like discrepancies.
Too dirty.
His other downfalls as an actor, like when he cries, right? And I always think of this as the worst part of the movie is at the very end where Arnold leans over to him before he dips himself in the pool, right? He goes, I know now why you cry, but it's something I can never do. Which is like, Arnold said it horribly, and I know it's supposed to be touching and it's supposed to be a father-son thing, but like I never felt emotional. And even today, like I'll sit there, I'll shed a tear at movies that I've watched 30 times, but like now I'll cry about it because like I have more life experience, you know? No, didn't hit me now. Thought it was as ridiculous now as it did back then.
It got me, man. I didn't cry, but it got me.
And part of it was me not believing that Edward Furlong was actually sad, right?
But Arnold, like the relationship between the two, I felt like was good. It was like you talk about having a dog. Like he was kind of his pet, and he was there. He's his protector. He was sort of his Batman, so to speak. Yeah,
but I feel like there needed to be more scenes of them being personable with each other. There just wasn't enough, right?
Yeah,
and there's no time to do that in the movie. It's not the movie's fault, and I'm not even blaming Furlong because he was good for like 75% of this movie, but he just couldn't carry the emotional weight, and it's probably why that he never like. You talk about breakthrough performance. You made the joke like breakthrough performance. Edward Furlong, isn't that funny? It's like, yeah, he broke through, but like he kind of like went back in the hole then.
Yeah. What was
He
he in
didn't
next? American History X or something? I think that's like
It's
it,
possible. He's in one of my favorite B-movie horror movies called Brain Scan,
Right?
which I think was right after this, where he plays a video game and it's about a serial killer and it's like a VR brain experience, and it turns out that like he actually committed the murder and he has to like cover his own tracks. It's a whole thing. It's like it's trippy.
Was he broken through at that point, or did he go backwards?
No, that was kind of a step backwards because the movie was so bad. Like it was like good bad. It was like one of those enjoyably bad. But yeah, that part of his acting led me to not believe him as the resistance leader.
I liked the scene when he said, you know, I know now why you cry. Like it got me a little bit. I didn't cry, but it got me.
When I know it's coming, I'm like, oh boy, here we go again. I know now why you cry, but it's something I can never do.
He's supposed to say it wouldn't. He's a robot. He's a robot.
And then he gets dipped into the pool, and like you can tell he's sad, but he's a robot, so he's not allowed to be sad. I don't know. I didn't like sad T-800. Give me more of the stoic T-800.
He's got a learning computer, though. He learned emotion. Now that's the question, though. Was he emoting, or was it something because he expected, like Furlong expected it, so he was trying to mimic a human?
He's mimicking it. He's definitely mimicking it. It's like, John, I'm sorry. I have to go. I'm sorry.
Because if you're a machine, like it's logical that you need to kill yourself. That's
he's not sentient, so he doesn't have the emotion, but he understands the emotion.
He's not Johnny Five.
Yeah. I know now why you cry, but it's something I can't do. I know you're sad. I have to go. I'm not sad. I'm just going.
You're sad.
Yeah, you're sad. I'm not crying. I'm not crying. You're crying.
I'm not crying. You're crying. Exactly.
That's exactly
I'm not sad. You're sad. I got to go. Bye. Yeah. And then he jumps in, and it's like, do you think he should have done the pencil too? I was thinking about that too.
No, he can't self-terminate. He can't self-terminate. That's the rule.
But like, isn't hanging on to that thing and letting them lower you by nature self-terminating? Yes. So shouldn't they? He should have said like he's got to run, and they got to try to kill him. Yeah. That's the termination.
But if he knows the plan, he should be able to stop himself from being terminated.
That's what I mean. Like he knew. I feel like his system, it wouldn't allow him to actually be submerged.
Like I can't hang on this chain right now because this is a dangerous situation where I could possibly be terminated.
Right. Yeah. This might self-terminate me.
So how do you do that then? He's
going to have to run away, and they got to try to hunt him.
They'll never get him. They will never kill this guy.
And that's where they should have went with the sequel instead of the other ones. But
okay. Well, when he allowed them to like switch his chip, you know, they could just say, all right, we're going to go in there. We're going to switch your chip back.
To trick him.
To read only, to trick him. That's how you got to do it.
They have to trick him. That's how they do it. And then they just burn his chip out.
And since John is his like leader, quote unquote, he has to do whatever he says. John says, sit down. We're going to take your chip out. And then like, that's how you get him.
But it's like,
and he wants you to get him, but like he can't know.
But what's a higher priority? Listen to him or do not self-terminate? Like which one takes the precedent in the order of operations?
Self-terminate equals failing the mission.
All right. So it's
and you cannot fail. So that's really rule one.
I like the idea of him running away and them having to chase him. I think that would be like hunting him.
Yeah. I mean, that's let's just make the movie longer. Let's just keep going.
It's too short, too low. It's way too low.
But no, like, wouldn't that be funny? Like if self-terminating is the only way to save John. So you got to put John in a dangerous position.
Yeah.
For him to have to self-terminate. Like he'll have to dive in the lava so John lands on him so that he can like jump out. I don't know.
Man, this is like, I don't want to have a 3-hour episode here, but there's too much to talk about. And this is like Terminator 2. It's one of the best episodes of all time.
Let's get James Cameron to listen to this audio and he'll be shaking his head going, these freaking idiots.
Damn, why didn't I make this movie? That's what he's going to say.
He's going to be freaking idiots.
These guys
you're thinking about it too much.
These guys knew what they were talking about. I should have made that movie instead. Yeah. That's what he's going to say. Before we move on from him, I have to ask you one other question about him. Because I want to know, like, do you really think that he was a jerk or was his foster family bad? And I think it's a question that I've always thought about for 20 plus years here. Like, was he really bad or was the foster parents terrible? Because the dad seemed kind of like a jerk. I mean, talk about bad father barometer.
Dad kind of seemed like an alcoholic a little bit. I mean, he had like 2 lines in the movie, and both of them were, one was being sarcastic to his wife about disciplining Connor, and 2 was yelling about how the dog's making too much noise because the wife was actually the T-1000.
cooking.
So it's like the dad's like scumbag right off the bat, right?
Is that the best dinner of all time? Because if a computer is making the dinner, it's like the perfect ratio, or was he just faking it? Like, did he not even know what he was doing?
How do you know how to like cook? Like that wasn't programmed
His
into him.
detailed files. He's got to be a human.
And how long was he supposed to keep up the charade of being the wife / foster mother, waiting for John to come home?
It's gonna be weeks.
Yeah. What if the husband wanted to get like frisky in the meantime? Like, does he get stabbed then and there?
Something else turns into a stab instead of the finger there.
Yeah.
It's not, there's going to be other pointy objects that kill the husband there, not the finger to the eye.
No.
Or whatever.
But no, I really found it hilarious that the T-1000 was cooking dinner.
It's got to blend in, you know?
Just waiting to come home, right? No, I think the parents probably sucked. But it's hard. Like, imagine, like, we don't know how many foster homes that Connor had been in. We don't know how long.
They didn't say.
We don't know how long Sarah was locked up for. They may have said it, and maybe I missed it. But you can be as nice as you want to John, right? But at a certain point, if the kid just does not listen to a word you say,
yeah,
you're going to get frustrated.
Yeah.
I'm sure you get frustrated with your daughter, and she's your flesh and blood.
It happens. I mean, and John Connor's out there stealing $300 from ATMs and hacking computers and stuff.
He's been arrested a few times, as we saw on the computer.
He's got a record.
This kid's always coming home from the cops, and they were not surprised when the T-1000 showed up at the door asking where John was. They were like, "Oh, what do you do this time?
Do you know this boy?
Do you know this boy?"
So let's talk a little bit about Cyberdyne and Skynet and Miles Dyson himself. And we mentioned a little bit earlier the chip and the T-800 arm. They fell into the hands of Cyberdyne. How did they get this stuff? We talk about a government conspiracy. And what is Miles Dyson's role in this whole thing? Because he's a critical character in the movie.
My assumption is that the FBI or whoever was investigating that factory explosion, whatever the hell happened there, they found the chip in the arm in the squash machine, and they were like, "What the hell is this? We have to like it was probably alien to them, right? It's one of those types of deals." So they take it to maybe the leader in United States technology, Cyberdyne Systems, and say, "Listen, we got something big. Don't ask us where we found it. Just do your work. What can you make of this technology?" And then they passed it down to their best man, Mr. Miles Dyson. And he would go on to basically create Skynet.
Well, I always wonder, too, if fate is inevitable or there is no fate or whatever. Like, did this just accelerate the events of the movie? Because, we talk about time loop. If the chip and the arm didn't exist, and now he's creating it by reverse engineering the chip, like, how does Judgment Day happen if that first event never happened? Was it always destined, and it is just a different timeline that sort of ultimately makes the events happen?
Yeah, August 29th, 1997 is Sarah's date that she knows of, because Reese told her, right?
Right.
That could certainly be moved up if Miles has breakthroughs in his research using the chip in the arm, which did not exist in Reese's timeline until he went back in time to his second timeline. So yeah, the date it does not matter. It's like it could be moved up, it could be moved back. Like at the end of T2 here, it's clearly stunted. The growth is stunted, but the government still finds a way in T3. It's just, it's pushed back.
Well, at what point is Miles Dyson considered a villain, right? Because he doesn't really know what he's doing, does he? I mean, he just knows he's got this chip that's like super advanced. They told him don't ask questions.
Yeah.
Is he evil, or is it like he just didn't know what he was doing? And how would you react if you knew ultimately that what you were doing was going to basically spawn the event or essentially the end of humanity as you know it?
Yeah, as soon as his assassination attempt fell through, and he learned from Arnold and crew, he immediately renounced his work and he basically quit on the spot. Went to blow up his office, right?
Yeah.
So you can't call him a villain, but it's funny. Another extended scene, which is why I think it's worth checking out the director's cut of this movie. I think the theatrical release is perfect, right? But if you've seen the movie multiple times, it's worth it to see the extended version. There's a scene in there where it's a Sunday, the morning of his assassination attempt where Sarah went to get him, he's working from home.
Yeah.
And it's like just the Jimmy Cameroon just predicting working from home back in the early 90s on this type of work, right? He had his whole office set up, Miles Dyson. He was working on a breakthrough, and he's like, he was so close. He was telling his wife, "I'm going to get this," and his wife's like, "No, you promised the kid you were going to take him to the water park today." And he's like, "Oh, you're right. I love you. Blah blah blah." Like they're a nice family, right? The type of family you wouldn't want to see killed by Sarah Connor,
right? I mean, they set it up for that for sure,
right? And then that night, she came and she infiltrated the house and almost killed him, and that what led to them blowing up, Cyberdyne. Had he worked through that Sunday, it's possible that he could have found the breakthrough that accelerated the growth of Skynet
and caused it,
and maybe caused it earlier than August 29th, 1997.
True.
There's no fate but what we make for ourselves. He could have altered fate in the negative without even knowing it.
That's a good point. I mean, that's a good point.
Yeah.
And I mean, if these guys showed up, I mean, you talk about the assassination plot, like she tries to kill him. Like if she actually killed him, wouldn't that have been bad? Like if she actually shot him because they didn't destroy the stuff, it was sort of a short-sighted plan because somebody else would have just picked up the research. Was he the only man for the job? No one else could do it? Or would someone else have just done where he left off, I guess? Because they still had the equipment.
Yeah. I think that he was the man for the job at that point. Had he pushed through and made a breakthrough and sent it off to his colleagues, after the breakthrough, they would have been able to carry it, I believe. But I think if she assassinated him before the breakthrough, it may have severely stunted the growth of Skynet.
Well, and the other thing was they showed up. How do you talk about believing or not believing? I mean, they had physical proof, and Arnold chops his skin off of his arm like pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Like, would you believe this if they showed up? I mean, if they showed up with that, I mean, I think you have no choice but to leave that, right?
It's not just the arm alone. I mean, the arm makes you pay attention, right? Because holy shit, this guy just removed his skin. But I mean, there's some great prosthetics out there. That could be a prosthetic. Well, we don't know. Yeah. Looks real. I mean, for 1991, it's pretty ridiculous. It's pretty remarkable. But the ripping off of the arm and the detailed telling of the story is enough, probably. And if they needed more visual proof, he could just rip open his scalp.
Yeah. Chop his head off.
Yeah, chop his head off and show everyone his skeleton face if he really had to.
Quick question about chopping the arm off. You talk about prosthetics and stuff, but what point does it just not heal anymore? Because he cut his whole arm off and then he starts wearing gloves and long sleeves. Are we to assume he doesn't put that back on, right? He's walking around with a skeleton arm.
Yeah, I don't think it's it's not like he's not like a snake, right? It's not going to just
because they said
seal up.
They said his bullet holes would heal, but maybe it's smaller surface area.
Yeah, I think it's like penetration of the skin. It's not the same as ripping it off, right?
Yeah, and I think I don't even know where to put this. I don't want to jump all around, but maybe best line of the movie is John Connor going, "Show me your room, kid." As his father has a gun to his head. Come show me your room.
Come show me your room. Now, there's nothing kids love more than showing you their room. I know this, but.
Show me your room.
The kid was about to take a bullet for his dad just 5 seconds ago, and now it's like, show me your room. Do you think he's going to be excited about? Think he's going to be excited about showing you his Batman sheets?
Yeah, check out my Transformers. Come check out my Nintendo, my Super Nintendo. It's like his dad's got a gun to his head by a killing machine.
Yeah,
like, oh cool, show me your room. Like tell me, Leo.
If I'm that kid, I'm probably thinking they're trying to get me away so they can shoot my dad. Would have me not see it.
See, now tell me Leo couldn't have delivered that line a little bit better. I mean, come on,
show me your room.
Show me your room. What about the plan to destroy the chip in the arm? Because they do the assault you mentioned. He goes and blows up his workplace. I mean, if that doesn't get you fired, I don't know what does. I mean, ultimately he dies.
That's certainly suspended without pay. That's for sure.
Does he get severance for that?
No, I think you pretty much violate your breach of contract. There's probably something in the bylines there about not blowing up your workplace.
I like this scene. It reminds me. You talk about that video game and that rail shooter. Like I'm thinking about it like the Die Hard video game and like a game more like that. Like this to me is like an awesome level where you got to like infiltrate Cyberdyne, not just like a rail shooter. Like I feel like this is definitely ripe for that. And it's a
video game scene for sure. Certainly memorable, and just Arnold with a minigun shooting at but not killing any cops. my favorite injury in this entire movie has to be the guy that got shot in the back with a smoke grenade. Like, who in real life, like you can probably count on one hand less than 5 people that actually got shot point blank by a smoke grenade, right?
Yeah.
It's not a thing that you get shot at, it's shot towards you, right? That thing had to hurt like hell.
I'm sure it did. He probably broke
And
his spine.
him running away, getting shot at, and he goes, ah!
Are you nominating this guy already for 2023?
I'd rather get shot. I'd rather get shot. Is it wrong to say I'd rather get shot with a bullet?
No, because what if that thing severs your spine, and then he's paraplegic? I mean, he'll live, but
you know what? Yeah,
paralyzed.
He'll live.
But he's paralyzed.
He's paralyzed, but he'll live.
Are you nominating this guy for the That Guy Award already?
I mean, he's in the running. It's only February, but he's in the he's in the running.
We got to add that. Yeah, the guy that gets hit by a smoke grenade in the back in Terminator 2, like 2 seconds of screen time, but I think it's a That Guy performance.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't check the credits, but that's got to be the description for who that guy was in the cast.
We barely even talked about the T-1000. We did a little bit earlier, but we got to put him through the villain scale. If you're new to our show, check out our villain scale. It's the Last Row patented villain scale. You got 4 major categories: look, style, hideout or lair, plan, and henchman. Maybe we should adjust this at some point in the future. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see where he stands on the rating by the end of this thing. Let's just dive right into this. T-1000, one of the most iconic villains of all time. Look and style, that way. I mean, this is like, it's got to be a 5, right? I mean, come on.
I mean, do you count his police officer form as like his main form? I guess that's who he is.
Yeah. It's got to be.
You also have to give bonus points or negate points for his other forms, such as stepmom making dinner, psych ward security hospital, the floor, right? His Alex Mack ooze form, various other cops, Sarah Connor, the voice changer, etc. Also his weapons, like that he turns into, his knives, his guns, not his guns, his swords and whatnot. I don't know. It's pretty iconic, right?
Yeah, I mean, you see Robert Patrick in a police officer picture, and you know what this movie is from, or you know what movie it's from. Yeah. And I feel like he has some, like, just the look itself is iconic, but we don't talk about powers on this. There's no like category for powers or anything, but I think it kind of fits under look and style. But you mentioned the fact that he can shapeshift is like just it's like unfair. Anything he touches, he can mimic. Oh. He can't form complex machines and all that, but you mentioned some of the different weapons that he has. I mean, the fact that he can run like as fast as a dirt bike too is also pretty impressive. He can hang off of the back of a car. I mean, I feel like his look is so iconic, and the fact that he can transform, it has to be a 5, right? We can't go lower. And
don't forget, it's slick back hair too. I mean, the hair is very, very slick back.
It's definitely, it was not pushback. It was slick back.
It was not pushed. It was slick back.
It was slicked.
Yeah, and I think his weapons, they're a part of him because they are literally a part of him. And I think the liquid metal and the effects as well.
Yeah,
like the special effects that hold up to today's standards, kind of like
it really does.
Sure, you can tell it's from a bygone era, but unbelievable for its time and passable for today. Which, I mean, we've talked about this before, where there are other movies that have been made after this movie that look way dated. And this movie just like fits in. The effects in this movie were just fantastic, and he's a big reason for it. I mean, not Robert Patrick himself, but
yeah, but I agree with you, and I feel like you watch this and you can show it to someone that may not have grown up in this time. And if you show certain movies like from the 90s, like think about Mortal Kombat. Remember when we talked about Mortal Kombat? We did that, it was 97.
Yeah.
And you think about the reptile or scorpion, like the reptile CGI is one of the worst I've ever seen. The scorpion thing coming out of his hand. At the time, it looked really cool. This looks arguably better, and it's like 10 years earlier, in my opinion. And I know it's James Cameron and a huge budget, but it looks fantastic, and I feel like it's awesome.
And you're right. It leads towards a high scoring look for the T-1000.
It's got to be a 5. It's got to be a 5. No, I went into this thinking that he was going to break the scale. And I really thought he was, but I feel like the scale is sort of set against him just because of what it is.
The scale is not friendly to people that don't have a house or friends.
Yeah, it really. I don't know. Maybe we need to rethink this at some point.
No,
but
I think it stops people from being overpowered.
That's true. But what about his hideout and lair? What are his accommodations? Does he have a place? Would you give him a home of operations or base of operations?
Not really. I mean, I wouldn't even call this cop cars. He's not even that enough.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be a 0 because he's just always on the run, you know? Just
I
like
think-
the T-800, I mean, he had the motel at
Roach
least.
Motel.
So at least he got it. I think he might have gotten a 2 for that.
I think he did if we gave him that
Yeah.
because it was yeah. So to look back at the T-800, we gave him a 4 for look and style and a 1 for his hideout and lair. I think it's a 1. I think we don't go 0, so it's got to be 1
Yeah,
just because
it's
we
gotta be
do
1.
it. But he doesn't have
yeah,
one.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we gave him a point for having a place, but took it away immediately because the place was so terrible.
Yeah, it was so
Right.
bad.
Yeah, he just flat out doesn't have one because he's always on the run, as a Terminator should be. So what's he gonna do? Rest?
Unless that's good because he doesn't have a place to hide, so no one's ever going to find him because he's always
Yeah.
on the move. He's a
It's like a-
nomad.
There's no time to rest. He doesn't need to rest.
We can just give it a 1. I don't know. I feel like
It's a 1. It's gotta be
I
a 1.
wish it was higher, but it can't be.
Yeah.
What about his plan? So, and maybe contrast the T-800 and T1
Yeah.
versus the T-1000 and T2.
Well, we all know that T1 T800 was a dud, right? We've talked about it. It's been discussed, explained, and I think explained very well that it was a dud. This guy at least had a little bit better plan going along. He wasn't going on a murder spree right away. He wasn't kicking down doors, shooting John Connors left and right. He took that cop suit and he went on a manhunt, on a legal cop manhunt. Now you could argue, as you said earlier in the episode, that a teenager doesn't trust a cop. And that's a fatal flaw in your plan.
-1.
Yeah. But at least he was calculated about it and
Yeah.
didn't just go on a shooting spree right away.
Well, and if you think about it, if he wasn't the cop, he would have had to commit a crime by stealing the cop's computer to look him up. So he gets a point for knowing that, hey, the cop has a computer, if that was calculated, if he wasn't just trying to be a garbage man or someone that didn't have access to that database.
Yeah.
He didn't have to break into the police office and look for him. He didn't have to go to City Hall and find his public records.
Yep.
He did it. But you're right. I don't know. I think
Yeah.
the cop was a good approach to it, but it also was a flaw, as
Yeah.
you said, with the teenager.
But it led him right to him. Like he was footsteps away from him, right? Whereas Sarah Connor in 1, she was on edge because she saw in the news that 2 Sarah Connors already died. So she was already ready
Yeah.
to like defend herself, even though she didn't know what was going on until Reese found her. John, he locked eyes with him and still didn't know what was going on.
True.
So that right there gets him further than the
True.
dud, right?
Yeah, and I feel like the whole execution of it, you mentioned he was very calculated in how he approached it. The T-800, the dud that went in and just started wrecking everything. He's causing a mess. I mean, he's making a mess. Even in the mall shootout scene, which is one of the most iconic scenes in the movie, when he's running through the hallway, who are you going to trust, a cop or a biker with a shotgun? I mean, truthfully, right?
True. Yeah, true.
It just by nature, you're going to
Yeah.
trust more of a police officer because they're probably trying to get the guy that's committing the crime for the
Yeah.
most part.
Yeah.
And I feel like that alone gives him a pretty good score. He really was unbeatable too, until they found liquid steel
They got
and threw
lucky.
him into that thing.
They got lucky.
Because even the liquid nitrogen, and I don't know where we should talk about this. Obviously, we can't go on for 3 hours here, but
Mm.
like the liquid nitrogen sort of paused his moment or paused him, but then he reformed. Like, did he have any weaknesses at all outside of this? And is he even really defeated? Or is now whatever they make that steel into, is he part of the building?
Yeah.
Or the
is
truck?
It, is
or
it
the
Child's
wall?
Play 2 rules that like whatever that steel makes ends up becoming part of the T-1000? I mean, they made it seem like he died. All his forms were showing up. He was thrashing. He was splashing around.
I like that.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I struggled with thinking of ways to beat him. Aside from like thinking in terms of Ghostbusters to like, how do we trap that liquid, right?
You
How
need
can
the
we
containment
possibly-
unit.
Yeah, we need a containment unit. We got to trap that liquid. If you trapped some of the liquid in a soda bottle, for example, say a 20-ounce bottle or a 2-liter, would he be able to bust out of that bottle? Or if you capped it, would it be like the slime from Ghostbusters 2 where it would rattle around,
Yeah.
but it's contained in a
But it's
Tupperware
like-
container? Could you put him in Tupperware?
Yeah, I guess a good point. Well, if he could
Yeah.
form spikes out of
Yeah.
the liquid,
Yeah.
maybe it has to be like lead or something where it's like, acid can eat through something.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like that, those kind of rules. But I like your way you're thinking. You need
Yeah.
some kind of trap or container.
Otherwise, the liquid nitrogen worked. Got lucky they found it, but like at that point, You have to keep him in like a a freezer of
Like a
such
cryogenic
a
thing.
cryogenic freezer and hope that just no one lets him out. Someone lets him out 200 years from now that doesn't know the story of the T-1000. I mean, all hell's going to break loose all over again.
Well, so are you saying you're going to give him? Can we give him a perfect plan? I mean, he really was only defeated because they walked into that steel plant, or was that calculated?
But I don't think his plan wasn't great because he didn't have a good backup plan.
That's true.
Like after he locked eyes with John Connor, he was winging it after the fact, right?
That's true.
I don't know. Like I'd still go at least a 3.
I kind of want to go 4 just because, like, how do you beat him? But that's not really part of the plan.
No, but like it's part of like the Skynet's plan to like when they built the T-1000, he was almost flawless. So that counts, I guess.
Because there's really no way to beat him, and they honestly beat him by accident. If you think about it, they didn't really know what the hell they were doing. I mean,
they were lucky that he himself commandeered a liquid nitrogen tanker.
Yes.
And crashed it into steel smelting, factory or whatever the hell.
Now I want to take a point away because he should know better.
Yeah.
Like, he should have taken them to like a field.
He was in go mode and he didn't realize what he was carrying back there.
Maybe you convinced me to go back to a 3. I wanted to go 4 because I feel like it was like, oh, he's damn near impossible. But he himself should have been smarter.
Yeah.
Maybe we do have to go 3 because he should have
almost like
known better.
He was almost chasing through emotion, but that doesn't make sense because he doesn't have emotion.
Yeah. And that gives him 1 point better than the T-800.
Yeah.
Let's go 3.
I'm fine with a 3.
Let's go 3. Okay. Well, what about henchmen? Because I don't think there's any, right?
Are his forms henchmen?
They're part of his body, I guess.
Well, I think we counted them with look and style, though.
What he should have done, and when they broke off his hand and it was part of the car and it fell. Yeah. What would have been cool is if he could have split into multiple versions of himself, and then you have 2 T-1000s running around, like maybe like a half size one.
Are they like are they
it's like a child size one. Yeah. So then he has to form as a child.
Interesting.
But or maybe like one's really tiny and it's just like, an animal or something. But could he form as a dog? Why didn't they do that?
Do you think he could have better or worse fought Arnold as 2 miniatures versus one whole?
I think better.
Double teamed him, but smaller?
Because one could be a distraction and one could be like, imagine like 2 children, but like really strong kids fighting him.
Yeah.
And because Arnold would also underestimate him.
But each one could only be half as strong as a full size T-1000 though. Like could a half size T-1000 spike his back? Like I don't know.
Why didn't anybody ever write this into the script? Yeah. It would have been cool if the parts could have become something else. Like, why do they need to be together?
Very interesting. I never thought of that.
He gets a 1 though because there's nothing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's nothing here.
If he would have duplicated himself, then maybe we can call that a henchman. But no, he gets a 1.
Man. So I'm adding this up here. So I'll recap it for you guys. So he's got a 5 for look and style, a 1 for hideout and lair, a 3 for the plan, a 1 for the henchman. So he's got a 10 here. Man, it's kind of disappointing, isn't it? For as badass as he is.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have a house and you don't have friends, what are you doing?
Kind of disappointing. I mean, to be honest, he's up there with like Kelly Stone from Sidekicks, Poison Ivy. He's in there with Jerry Jones, Billy Loomis. I mean, damn. It's almost like guys like the Wet Bandits have a higher. Well, it's 2 of them, I guess. But you got Hugo Snyder from 3 Ninjas higher than him. I'm losing faith in our scale here somehow, but I think it's pretty low. But
no, I think that it just
speaks for itself.
Yeah, you have to be well rounded. You have to be well rounded.
So before we close this out, we mentioned at the beginning of the show, this is probably one of the greatest sequels of all time. Probably the best Terminator film when you look at it objectively. There's multiple Terminator films in the franchise. Each one has progressively maybe been critically not well accepted, maybe some also publicly not well accepted. If you brought back James Cameron, forget that T3 existed, forget that any of these other ones existed, Genesis and all these others. If you said, James Cameron, come back, you write and you direct, and you make Terminator 3, do you think it would be as good and would it do it justice? Or is this really just like a product of its time and you can't really make it again?
I think it's both product of his time and lightning in a bottle. That T2 was as good and better than T1. Yeah, I feel like T3 would have been a great movie because I have full faith in this director, but would not have been as good and better enough left alone. I'm glad he made Titanic, put it that way. It didn't waste his time on T3.
And then explore the ocean.
Let the other people write all the sequels. Get some enjoyment out of them. They don't need to be as good as T2. T2 can be its own thing by itself.
And for the record, I like T3. I know it's not a great movie, but I think the acting does it a disservice. But I feel like the writing and the story actually is pretty cool. And I didn't mind it. And the scene of Arnold with the casket is one of my all-time favorite images.
Yeah. Listen, Nick Stahl is the Edward Furlong of 20-something actors. Right?
It's perfectly cast, right? I mean, it was perfectly cast.
Yeah.
You couldn't have done it any better. I mean, you're exactly right. So, I don't know. I love this movie. We joked about it not being too long or whatever. It really was over 2 hours, but it felt like it goes by in a breeze. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. I hope you guys like it too. If you've never seen this, you better go out and watch it right now. It's that good. But man, what a great movie. I'm glad we were able to do this one.
I would love a world where there's a person out there listening who has never seen T2 and went and saw it just because Drew and Badway said to go watch it.
I want to know. So listen, if you have not seen this movie, if there's someone out here that's listening to this and you've not seen it, please send us an email, thelastrowpodcast@gmail.com, or write a comment on the YouTube page or the website's page, thelastrowpodcast.com. Please let us know, because I want to know why you haven't seen it. And then after you see it, I want to know what you think of it as a fresh viewer. I need to know.
It's like, I never saw this classic movie, but these two podcast fools that I listen to, you know what? They convinced me.
These idiots. Well, thanks for listening. If you guys are enjoying the show, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We'll be back, and we'll be back to you guys in 2 weeks with our new episode on Thursday, March 9th. And in the meantime, watch Terminator 2. If you haven't seen it, let us know, and we'll see you guys in a couple weeks. So I asked you before, is it functioning? You're just suggesting that it's just there. It's just hanging, it's not doing anything. There's no function to it whatsoever.
No, there would need to be the synthetic blood flow down there, right?
Don't they have blood?
And how do you simulate arousal?
Unless they have the pump.
It's a feeling that I know now why you cry, but it's something you never do.
I know now why you are aroused.
I don't know why you are aroused, but it's something I can never do.